What up, YouTube? Happy Sunday. I hope all is well. I woke up. I had a good sleep. I went to sleep at I feel like 1 o'clock. And I just woke up and it's 12 something. So that was a long, what is that? That's like 11 hours I slept. So that was a nice little sleep. But I wanted to talk about so much today, and I hope I could fit it in because this thing is for 44 minutes and 46 seconds. So I'm gonna try to do it in 20 minutes. Like, it's so much to talk about. Okay, so I wanted to talk to my parents with teenagers really quick. 2 movies that I saw that was very enlightening. One movie, and it's so good, I think I need to watch it again. Like, these movies is really, my summer is really good. I go out, but when I'm home, it's some really good ass movies. Like, okay. So, I wanted to talk about the movie Bad Influence. So, the girl from 90210, I forget her name, but she's the blonde girl. She's like the main character. Also, rest in peace to Shannon Doherty. Yo, this cancer shit is out of control. And the fact that our rich people, white people, are dying from cancer, it just shows you it's not even a racial thing. It's just, and people are going to the doctor because people have the assumption of, oh, well, they didn't take care of themselves. No, these people are rich and they actually do go to the doctor, the actors and stuff. And she just died from cancer, and I didn't even know she had cancer. Once the lady from Charlie's Angels passed away from cancer, that's when I realized it gotta be something in the food. It has to be something, because the lady from Charlie Angels, Farrah Fawcett, that was her name, Farrah Fawcett. So Farrah Fawcett was very healthy. She was very put together. She used to exercise, all of that. Shannon, I'm not too sure about, Shannon Doherty. But Farrah Fawcett, she was very in tip-top shape, whatever, and caught cancer. And within 1 year died. So this shit is serious. It's just crazy. Rest in peace to Shannon Doherty. The Trump thing, y'all already know how I feel about that. Trump, it just shows you that they protect who they want to, and whoever they want to die, they let them die. Because it's just interesting how when you stand for something right, you'll die. But Trump is all wrong, but they're gonna protect him at all costs. And that's so sad about this world. Like, the good die young, but if you evil, you live very long. It's just crazy to me, like, really crazy. But I wanted to talk to my parents about teenagers. One of the movies is called Bad Influence. The blonde girl from 90210, she's in it, and she plays the mother because she's like 53 years old. She has 3 kids. She actually has a teenager, like her baby is a teenager. She got a 27-year-old, a 21-year-old, and she has a 17-year-old. So she was like, playing this role was just like home for her because she is a mom in real life. And it was just so good because it was about a mom who, a lot of our kids suffer from social anxiety. I don't know if social media is to blame or anything, or COVID, but a lot of our kids, like my son has friends, but very few. And I think that's a good and a bad thing, because in this movie, this girl had one friend, and that one friend was a bad influence. So it starts off with little things. So the girl is disrespectful to a teacher for no apparent reason. You know, because some teachers are like weird. Because I don't know if I told y'all about my son's teacher. She was a weirdo. Like, she was accusing him of things. She never apologized. But you have some teachers that are cool. In the movie, the teacher, he didn't do nothing. She was just being rude for no reason. So the girl go home and tell her mom, and her mom was like, well, if this really is your friend, bring her over. First of all, if my son telling me somebody rude to a teacher for no reason, I don't want you hanging out with them, and I damn sure don't want them in my home. So I guess she was just she was just so happy that her daughter made a friend. She wasn't thinking. But as a parent, from the gate, you gotta think. You gotta, that's one thing about my mom. She didn't meet my friends from high school, but when I would tell her things, she gave great advice. Like, oh, that's not a friend. Oh, watch out for this one. She didn't really have an opinion about Jelani or Shannon because the people I told y'all about that I'm not friends with no more. But when it came to Keisha, the one I told y'all about, the one who was talking shit about me, she was like, Crystal, why you always calling her? My mom peeped that. She's like, why you always calling her? Now, granted, when I didn't call her, she would call me, right? But in general, it's like, if you see one-sidedness in your relationship, and this goes for anybody, a cousin, a friend, whatever, you have to pay attention to that. That's one of the signs. But in this situation, the girl was very possessive and controlling. She tried to, and I wanted to talk to my teens a little bit. If you have a friend who's saying negative things about your folks, your parents, and it's kind of like weird because they don't even know your mom, you gotta put a stop to that. So this particular girl that was the bad influence, she was telling her, oh, your mom is controlling this. Her mom was very far from controlling, okay? Do you know what controlling is? Controlling is when you can't go nowhere. Controlling is when you're 21 years old and you're being told you can't go to the club. And if you have a kid, that kid is with the father, family, but you're being told you can't go nowhere. Like, that's controlling. Like, I remember me and my dad was talking about that recently. And of course, he doesn't remember that. Like, it's just he does not remember being that strict. But that's what you call control, okay? Or like, you're not allowing your child to go nowhere after school or the weekend. It's come straight home from school, go to church, the end. Like with my mom wasn't allowed to go to prom. That's control. Because it's like, what are you trying to protect her from? This is the last night she's going to be a high school student. Let her enjoy that. But back in those days, Carrie, I think I told y'all about. Carrie, even though that was a movie, a lot of people in the 70s were raised in a strict household where you couldn't. And for black people, I was thinking about that the other day. Like, for black people, it made sense because it was very segregated. Like my father said, the North was more racist than the South, and it was because the South would tell you, you can't come in here, but in the North, they would do it subtly. So back in the 70s, the 60s, you can go in a restaurant and they'll lie and they'll be like, oh no, we're not taking no more customers. Stuff like that. Or you could go to the movies and they'd be like, oh, it ran out, it's sold out, when it's not. And back in those days, it was no way to verify it because they didn't have these apps and stuff like that. Like, if you go to a restaurant and they tell you a lie about, oh, it's no more seating or whatever, you could actually go, you could go on the Google and see if they lying or not. Back then, they didn't have all of that. So they were very subtle in their racism, but it was like, I believe my father, it was worse than the South, because at least the South, they tell you no niggas allowed. But in New York, and also with the school system, more than one person told me that they try to get into a school I used to work at, Midwood High School. I was there for a year and a half. I was told that in the 80s and the 90s, right, if you were from the Caribbean, let's say you was born and raised in Trinidad, for example, right, and you try to get into Midwood, do you know that Midwood would deny you and you had to go to Erasmus? That's racism. That's clearly racism. But nobody really knew about it unless if you went through it in the 80s and 90s as an immigrant, as a kid. And it's sad to treat a kid like that, because that's not the kid's fault that they from another country. But that was the racism in New York. It was very thick. There was a time when, those of y'all who from East New York, Queens area, There was a time when you could not go to Howard Beach, that it was very racist, and if you drove over there, if you walked over there, it was going to be a problem. And this is as recent as the 90s. You know, so stuff like that, you know, people don't really talk about, you know, like, oh, the South is so racist. New York is way more racist than the South could ever be. And a lot of people have said it, and I believe it. At least the South, they tell you, yo, we don't like black people. They telling you what it is. But up north, it was very confusing because it's supposed to be better. But a lot of people that I've met and interacted with, they've been through a lot of racism. But yeah, so getting back to the movie Bad Influence. So the girl, she didn't have much friends. She befriends this one girl, and the girl starts telling her negative things like, oh, your mom this, oh, your mom that, da 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 da. So finally she's like, well, where's your mom? She lied and said that her mom worked a lot and was a lawyer. Come to find out, that wasn't even her mom, that's her sister. So the mom did some research, and she found out that they killed their parents. So she's telling her daughter this, like, yo. So at this point, the daughter is very sassy. She's talking back. And this is what I wanted to tell my parents. Like, if you see a mood change in your child, it's one of the many reasons. There's many reasons why there could be a mood change. Don't listen to people who say, oh, they're at that age, they're a teenager. That's a person who don't have a relationship with their kids. Straight up and down. If you have a good relationship, you have a good rapport with your child, follow your instincts. Don't listen to these other absentee parents. And I'm so serious when I say that. Do not listen to people who you know in your heart that they probably don't even talk to their kids, right? But if you have a good rapport with your child and you know your child, and all of a sudden your child shuts down or they start acting weird, that's at that point, do everything you can, because the enemy is after our children. I'm going to say it again. The enemy, the devil, whatever you want to call him, is after our children. So you have to remember, they have all these entities. They have more entities than what we had. Because when I was a kid, we had social media, but it wasn't like this. Like, this is on a next level. This is like, social media is their life, you know. And outside from that, you have trans, gay is the new straight now. I mean, you had gay people when I was growing up, but now it's crazy. Like, a boy wearing a wig now is not far-fetched. That's not something that's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? It's kind of like accepted now. Or a man wearing nails, or even Drake, he's wearing polish now. So you see how I have my polish? You got men that's wearing polish now, and that's like accepted. It's really crazy now. Yeah, so it's like, if you have a good relationship with your teen and they start acting different, it's up to you as a parent to really find out why, right? It might be because of a bad influence. So in this movie, the girl, she was disrespectful to a teacher, and the mother was like, oh, bring her over if that's your friend. That would have been a red flag for me, number one, because why is she being rude to the teacher for no reason? Granted, you do have teachers that's kind of weird, but no. Secondly, where her mama at? Or her mama never home. That's another red flag. Like, yes, parents have to work, but if that parent is not taking time out, at least some time to spend with the child, that's another red flag that you may not want your child around that kid. Straight up and down, you know. Because children that don't have guidance, they guide and raise themselves, you may not want that child around your child. Not saying that the parent is a bad parent, but you have to understand the mentality that comes with that child. They feel like, oh, I'm grown, I do what I want to do. And that's what the girl was saying. She's like, oh, I do what I want to do. And she felt that way because she had no parents. She killed her parents, right? But even people that's not that extreme, and they don't have no structure, you got to make sure they and I could truly say that even with the friends that I had that was having sex at 13 years old, they didn't have any structure. You know, even like with my own family, and my father told me things about him and his brothers. They was in the streets doing them because they had no structure. I don't know what my grandparents were doing, but they had no structure. And once you find out that somebody's household there's no structure, try to wean your child out of that. You know, they try to say negative things about us single moms, but at the end of the day, I'm a very active parent. I know what my son is doing, where he is at all times. I know what he's doing. I know what he's up to. I'm up in his business. So people could say what they want, but I'm a very active parent. 2 parents in a household don't mean shit if you're not doing what you're supposed to do. I know plenty of people who come from 2-parent households and their life is a shambles because their parents wasn't parents. That simple. Like, I had 2 parents in the household and they was up my ass. They knew everything, as they should. As they should. You know, so I know girls that, I know one girl, she got engaged when she was 17, married by 20. She started having sex at 14, and her parents had no clue. No clue whatsoever. Her mom didn't know she was having sex until she was pregnant. That's when her mother found out, which was 3 years later. That's crazy. That shows that you're not even interacting with your daughter. And the same girl that I'm talking about, I was in her wedding. That's what I told y'all about. So my parents didn't know all that about her. But, you know, she really was raising herself. Really, when it came to, like, a lot of things, she was self-taught. She had to teach herself a lot of things. She couldn't talk to her mom. A little similar to me. Like, I couldn't talk to my parents about sex because everything is a sin. Her mom didn't say it was a sin. She just said, stay to one guy and wait till you a little older to have sex. Like, she didn't tell her wait till marriage. She just said you should marry the person you have sex with, because that's what she did. Like, she gave it up to her father and then married her father, you know, when she was, you know, so it was a little different. Very similar to my parents, because my mom didn't have any sex before marriage at all. Like, she was very, very holy. So, but with her mom was a little different. Her mom did have sex before marriage, but she married that same guy. You know, so, and they did that back in the days too. But, yeah, so, you know, she raised herself, really. She, with STD check-in, with everything, she did her own research and she raised herself, you know, which is a lot of people. Like, their parents don't know nothing about them. They don't know what they doing. They don't come to them. Me and my son, we just had a conversation on Friday. And he was like, Mom, you know, da-da-da-da. And it was good. You know, he still comes to me about things. And I'm happy about that. I'm not oblivious to what the fuck is going on in his life. I would hate to be that parent, you know. Yeah, so with this bad influence, she was able to influence her and get in between her and her mom. Her and her mom had a good relationship until she came in. Also, the mother was very afraid to put her foot down. And that's the part of the movie I hated. I was like, I hated that for them so much. Like, she, instead of her saying, oh, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, blah, 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 putting her foot down. Like, if my son is talking back to me and he's constantly with this one person, that's what I want to tell my parents. If your child is constantly with this one person, that is not a good sign at all. At 15, 16 years old, you should have a lot more friends than just the one friend. Why you only got one friend? Because that one person is trying to destroy their life 9 times out of 10. Like, there's no way that you should just have one friend. You know what I'm saying? That's a little strange. And she was introducing her to sex. And there's a scene in there when they having a menage a trois. It's a hot mess. It's just, you know, it's just, be a parent. Do your investigation. Don't be afraid. So she finally does research on the girl. And she's trying to tell her, like, yo, she killed her parents. So finally, I guess something clicks. And she says it. She's like, she confronts her. And she's like, you know, my mom, she's tweaking, you know. She said you killed your parents, you know. And she's like, yeah, your mom not wrong. So that's when the climax comes in the movie. She confirms everything that her mom said, that the mom was right. Like, she killed her parents. She's like, well, I killed my parents because she's controlling like your mom and da-da-da-da. She's like, my mom is not controlling. She's just being a mom. Like, what you mean? And then she's telling her, oh, you need to kill your mom too. She's like, I'm not going to kill my mom. You crazy? Like, she really was trying to brainwash her into saying that, oh, your mom, da-da-da-da. She's like, my mom is not controlling. Like, I'm here with you right now, aren't I? Like, how is she controlling? Like, I'm still able to go out. She didn't say I can't go out. She cares about me. So, yes, she's going to have restrictions. Yes, she's going to have rules because I'm her daughter. Like, the hell? There's a difference between controlling and rules. You're supposed to have rules with your minor children, you know. Now, controlling is, like I said, my parents were very controlling. I was 21 being told I can't go out. Out, period. Whether if it was... But I still went out anyway. I wasn't listening to that. Like, you're not about to tell me. And my mother used to say, oh, when Antonio get older, you'll see. No, I still don't see. Like, no, I'm not gonna. If he wants to go out with his friends, all he has to do is call me, FaceTime me, and I'm good. I'm good. You know, so, you know, at 21, I remember when I was 20, my father had called me on the phone and was like, oh, you need to come home. 8 p.m. What? Like, it was crazy. But my father don't remember none of that. He's like in denial. He's like, no. I said, I still went anyway. That's probably why you don't remember. Like, I remember being 21 and being told I cannot go out. But I still went out anyway. I remember having full-blown arguments and wars before going out with my friends. Like, because I'm 21. You're not making sense. I'm like, whatever. But, and then it wasn't even about me being safe. It's my father thought I was out there being a hoe. And then my mother was like, how do you think I feel when the baby's in Jersey? Your father's out and you out. So it wasn't even because she was trying to protect me. She was bored at home and didn't want to be by herself. I said, well, that's not my problem. Like, no. But in this scenario, the mother was letting her go out, you know, so she wasn't being controlling. She was letting her do her, you know. It's just she was being secretive and she was talking back, like, nah. So finally, her and her mom, they set it up where the girl, she was going to kill the mom, but instead the guy was there. And it ends off on a really good note. She got her daughter back, and it just is a life lesson for parents to be like, it's okay to set boundaries, it's okay to set rules, and it's okay to be in your kids' business. You have to prevent them from bad influences like that. Then there was another movie called Bad Sister, and you know, she's a teacher / nun. And even though it's just a movie, it really gets you to thinking, like, we always hear about the priests, we never hear about the nuns. And it's very possible that the nun could do that, because you just never know, right? So this nun, she wasn't even a real nun, she was an imposter. But she raped the boy, and I say rape because he didn't really want to do it. They show it in the scene. He's like, no, this isn't right. She comes into his room and she rapes him. To me, as rape, he didn't really want to do it, because after they did it, he was like, nah, I'm not comfortable with this. This isn't right. You're my teacher. Like, this is not right, you know? So, she was just nasty, because it's like, of all the people, all the men, you gonna do that with a student? Like, she was stalking him. And I brought this up to say this: kids, don't be afraid to talk to your parents, even though it might, and it struck something with me, because I went to private schools, and luckily that never happened to me. But I could, there was an incident where there was a girl I went to school with. Her child's father / boyfriend of many years was the dean's brother. And we all agreed he had to be grooming her. He had to be. Because the timing, like when they got together less than a year after she graduated. So it's like he had to be grooming her all along, you know. And then there was another incident before I got to the school where my biology teacher's wife messed with a student. So you got to be careful of the signs. You know, sometimes these adults that work with your kids, or they around your kids, because my biology teacher, he was young, and what he used to do is he used to let people come over his house for tutoring. So they saw his wife, and the student, you know, messed with the wife. But to me, it's like she probably seduced him. She probably raped him. And that's something we don't really talk about in our community, and especially with these private schools. Because the good thing about the DOE, if you do anything with a child or a student, they putting your ass on investigation and you are fired 9 times out of 10. They don't play with that shit. But with these private schools, if the person is a member, or if they cool with the principal or the pastor, they may or may not get fired. So you as a parent, you have to press charges and go to the police and stuff like that. And I can't stress that enough. Just because a school is Christian or Catholic, that does not mean anything. And this movie it starts up a conversation, because you got to look at your women too. There are female pedophiles too, and people forget about that. But you got to check for your boys too. I always tell my son, you know, if you feel uncomfortable, or if somebody say something or do something or touch you, always if you don't want to tell me, tell somebody. Don't ever feel like, now in this movie, he didn't want to tell his parents because that's not the relationship he had with them. And then he was saying, oh, I'm going to hell, you know, I did something with a nun. So he was blaming himself. And you do have parents and people that are very ignorant, because I've heard it. Like, you know, if a young 14, 15-year-old girl, let's say if she gets involved with a pastor, they're not going to say, oh, well, he raped her or something. They're going to look at her like, oh, she's the slut. And it's a sick mentality. She's a child. He came to her. And no one looks at that. Like, even if she's 18 years old, you have 18-year-old girls, and this happens to many of us, where these older guys in their late 20s, they come to the girl, they stalking the girl, they whatever, so you feel compelled like you have to do it, you know? And it's like, at that age, it's consensual, but when you're 18, your brain is still developing. So people don't look at that. Like, they just say, oh, well, she's a slut and she's the one that did the wrong. But the guy, he's older. He's 25 or he's 28. No one looks at that, you know. Or in some cases, the pastor, like there's a pastor right now, 60-something years old, and he married an 18-year-old girl. She just turned 19. He groomed her. Like, but you know, people that's brainwashed will say, oh, she's in the wrong. She's the slut. Like, no, he nasty. What are y'all, you know? And it's like, let's stop doing that. Like, let's start holding these people accountable. People of the cloth need to be held accountable for their actions. I don't care if you're a priest, pastor, bishop, whatever. There is no reason why you should be around people that's double beneath your age. So if you're 50 years old, there is no reason why you should have somebody 35 or no. Yeah, if you're 55 years old, for instance, right? You're a 55-year-old pastor. There's no reason why you should have somebody 35, my age, in your office for any reason. Period. 30, 25, 20, or any minors. Any minors, or it should be 40 and up in your office, straight up and down, for any reason. Because that don't look right. Let's just keep it real. It don't look right. You 55, you need to be hanging around people that's your own age. 55. Right? Nobody young should be up in your face. Period. You know? And there's too much of that going on. Eddie Long, may he rest in peace, but you had a lot of accusations against him because he was surrounding himself against all these young people. It's inappropriate. Where was his wife? Where was his bodyguards and security? Nobody should be just able to roll up on you because stuff like that happens. Then they want to accuse you of stuff. You know, then they, you know, it's just, you have to have boundaries. You have to have common sense, you know. But that's what I wanted to talk about. Parents, don't be afraid to be parents. On the flip side, don't be too strict because they're going to rebel. They're going to do it anyway. But make sure you have that rapport with them that they could be okay to talk to you. A lot of kids are being abused, manipulated, and pushed to do things they don't want to do because they can't talk to their parents. You know, that's one thing I regret. I couldn't talk to I told my parents everything because they asked and I was the only child. But they just made me feel like an alien, like something was wrong with me. And when I tried to tell them things, they didn't want to hear it. There was an incident that happened when I was 18, 19, and it could have been prevented if they were to listen. Like, yo, this guy was stalking me, this guy was calling me from different numbers, and it blew out of proportion because of not listening. And you know, it was horrible because it was from the church, and I don't think I'm gonna ever tell that story, but it's just, you know, be a parent. Listen to your kids. Especially in times like these. You know, somebody said it on Instagram, and I agree with her 1,000%. She's like, what is our world gonna look like in 10, 15 years? For real. It's already bad now, but Lord, we need you. And those are my thoughts.